But today, what we're gonna jump into a new sermon series, and you saw the title of it. It's called "How to Get What You Really Want." How many of you are interested in getting what you really want? Figuring out a way to do it, right? So, since we're starting off a series on this, and it's going to go for 3 or 4 weeks, I got to start with the question: What is it? What do you want? What do you want? And that's a loaded question because there's a lot of different things that people want. What I've noticed is this: that the younger you are, the more things you want. I remember, well, it hasn't been that long ago that I was a teenager, but I remember the things that I wanted as a teenager versus the things I want now. It's totally different. I want a lot less things now. Like now, the main thing that I want is just for people to leave me alone. Anybody ever feel that way? Like, just leave me alone, man. Like, leave me alone, and I'll be content, be happy with my life. But yeah, the younger you are, the more what there is, more wants that you have, and it changes considerably over time. The things that you want as a teenager, as a kid, are totally different than what you want now. Does anybody remember some of the stuff you daydreamed about, maybe when you're like in high school? For me, it was daydreaming about cars and trucks and motorcycles and girls and food. Most of the time, this is how my day would go. After lunch was over, I went to Southview. After lunch was over, my mind immediately transitioned to what's for dinner. And that's what got me through the rest of the day. Okay? So that's what I wanted. After lunch, I wanted dinner. And it kept me motivated through high school. But there's so many different things that people want. And I wanted a motorcycle really bad when I was in high school. A lot of my friends got motorcycles, which is stupid. Don't give a teenager a motorcycle. Don't do that. Looking back on it, I realize now why my parents weren't cool with me getting a motorcycle. And I grew up riding dirt bikes, four-wheelers, three-wheelers. I could perfectly drive a motorcycle. But even now, I'm 33 years old. I live on my own. I pay all my own bills, have my own house. My mother still tells me I cannot get a motorcycle. Every now and then, even though I don't really want one anymore like I used to, I'll say something, just drop it in a conversation with her about me possibly getting you ain't getting a motorcycle. You are not getting a motorcycle. Mom, I'm grown. I'm your mama. I'm telling you, you're not getting a motorcycle. So I'm not getting a motorcycle. Ever, apparently. But the things that I wanted in high school and as a kid, and the things that you wanted in different times of your life had changed significantly. So getting what you want is very tricky. Getting what you want is very tricky for a lot of different reasons, okay? Now, whenever I said, and I asked the question, what is it that you want? Nobody said it out loud. Maybe you didn't even think about it. But we all want one thing, and that's our way. Don't you want your way? I want it that way. Tell me why. Okay. Little Backstreet Boys for you guys. If I could sing, I'd sing it, but I'm not gonna. Okay. No, you don't sing either. No. We're trying to keep people in this church. Don't run them off. But we want our way, right? We want our way. Everybody wants their way. If you think about the majority of arguments that you get in with somebody, well, all of that was a sweet ringtone. I like that. Whenever you're in an argument with somebody, it's from not getting your way. Somebody wanted it one way, and the other person wanted the other, and that's where the conflict arises, right? But as long as you insist on having your way, we don't get what we really want. If you constantly get your way, you end up not getting what you really want. I made the comment last service, and it got super quiet, and I think I lost the crowd because I said, a lot of y'all give your kids everything they want. And then everybody was just like, because they knew it was true. Okay, if you're constantly giving somebody everything that they want, then they don't appreciate anything in their life. And it keeps them from getting better things later on down the road. You didn't have to clap, but I appreciate it. People who insist on having their way get in their own way, right? They get in their own way. And when we get our way all the time, we often get in our own way. We get in our own way a lot. when we're constantly getting our way. And there's a lot of like tongue twisters with this sermon. So I'm a pretty simple person. You can follow along, I promise. Hang in there a little bit. But when children constantly get their way, they get kind of, let's see, what's a good word I can use? Spoiled. Mine was way worse than that. But we get in our own way, and if you develop that habit at an early age for a child, it's just going to carry over to their adult life. We can't have our way and have it too. You know the saying, you can have your cake and eat it too? No, not really. You can't have your way all the time and still get what you want later on. This is the thing. If you always do what you want to do, you may end up in a place you don't want to be. If you're always doing what you don't want to do, you'll end up in a place you want to do what you don't want to be. We want to do what we want to do, right? Everybody's that way. It's natural. You want to do what you want to do, and for me, I want to do it, and I want you to leave me alone. All right? Just leave me alone. Let me sit on the couch every now. I don't get a whole lot of relaxed time. So whenever I do, like, don't bother me. Like, don't bother me, okay? That's kind of how I feel. That creates conflict in our home. Because whenever I'm not wanting to do anything, my wife wants me to do the most things. It just seems to happen that way. Whenever I'm super busy, she don't ask me to do anything. Whenever I finally get a chance to relax, the honey-do list comes out, right? I hate that list. I'd rather be on Santa's naughty list than have a honey-do list. So if you always do what you want to do, you'll end up in a place that you don't want to be. And this is kind of one of the other toxic problems that we have, is that we want constant pleasure. Now, I didn't want to use the word pleasure, because when I say the word pleasure, what do you think of? I was going to say a 16-ounce ribeye. But whatever. Also sex. Most people think of sex when you use the term pleasure. But pleasure isn't just sexual, obviously. There's a lot of things in life that can give you pleasure. We want constant pleasure. There's good types of things that can give you pleasure. It can be anything. It can be a hobby that you have. Maybe you really like singing. Something like that. But, whatever it is, it can be a legal thing. It can be something that's not necessarily bad for you. But too much of something can cause an addiction. It can cause an addiction. And what started off as just, a pleasureful type experience can lead to a terrible, terrible future for you. Pleasure is addictive, right? It's addictive, which eventually undermines the pleasure, which isn't what we want. So if pleasure is addictive, even if it's a good thing, too much of it can undermine it, and then the pleasure's not as good. What? You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a perfect example of this, at least I think. Everything goes back to food and things like that with me. It's not really food, but I think you understand. So a little over a year ago, I quit drinking soda, and I love Coke. Okay? Anybody Coke drinkers? Okay. Any Pepsi drinkers? I bet you have an Android too, don't you? Be willing to bet. I bet you do. It's funny because it's true. But I got so used to drinking Cokes for such a long period of time that, you just get used to it. And I think it was sometime last month, I was here at the church working, and I started feeling kind of sick to my stomach. And as you get a little bit older, you start learning to keep medicines on you. So in my truck is like a drugstore, the good stuff, like ibuprofen, things like that. Like I've had multiple knee surgeries. I even got an ice pack in my truck that I can bring and put in the freezer here if I need it. That's terrible. I'm not that old. Okay, but I had medicine in my truck. I was like, my stomach's hurting. So I think it was Zofran or something like that I was going to take. So I wanted to, even though it was a dissolvable pill, I was like, I need to chase it down with something. So I went in the coffee shop. And there was no Diet Coke. There was no water in there. There was just Coke, Pepsi, and some juice. Obviously, I went for the Coke because Pepsi is not my style. So I took the Zofran, and I took a swallow of that Coke that I hadn't had in like a year, and I was like, like super sweet. You know that good burn that you get, that like good burn that brings tears to your eyes, and you're like, oh yes, like that's that good. Oh, it's good, y'all. But I'm standing there, and I'm like, I don't remember it being that sweet. I never knew it was that, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, it's kind of the same thing with the way that we seek pleasure. We get so much of it, we get used to it, and it kind of loses its effect. I didn't realize how sweet Coke actually was until I didn't drink Coke for a really long time, and I haven't drank it since because it actually made my stomach hurt. It kind of like canceled it out. Like I took medicine to not have an upset stomach, and then it kept on hurting. I'm getting old, y'all. It's not good. But one of the things, even though we may not know what we really want, but we do know this: we want it right now. I don't know what I want, but I want it now. We live in an age where we want everything now. We got to have it now. And this past week, I'm finishing up a class for my MBA, and I had to write a 26-page paper. Ugh, it was terrible. But the topic of it was the way technology has advanced in the last 25 years. And we live in an age where with the internet and the speeds getting faster and faster, you can get everything now, super quick. Everything's fast. Everything's super fast. And it's kind of like Netflix. Anybody like Netflix? You remember the days whenever a show would come on once a week and you had to wait for the next week to see the next episode? I remember those days. It was a simpler time. Like back in the day when Full House was running, you know, Family Matters. I tried to learn that on the piano one time. Oh, that was a fail. I need to stick to drums. But over the course of time, Netflix has kind of spoiled us, all these, on-demand type things. One of my favorite shows right now, I was born in the 80s, and so one of my favorite things growing up was The Karate Kid. Anybody like the Karate Kid movies? So last year about this time, they announced that they were going to come out with a spin-off series called Cobra Kai. And my first thought was, this is going to be terrible. Like, they're going to ruin my childhood and mess this up. Y'all, it's awesome. You should watch it. It's on YouTube. YouTube Premium or something. You got to pay for it, but it's not much more than, actually, it's cheaper than Netflix. But I finished the first season. Like, I watched it straight. It was 10 episodes. They're like 30 minutes apiece. Sat down one day, watched all of them. As soon as it was over, I was like, no! I immediately get online, and I was like, well, this is a new show. Have they even decided they're going to continue this? I was like, this is an awesome storyline. What if it ends? Like, what if they don't pick it up? I'm like, this is not good. So finally they said that they renewed it for season 2, and I'm like, yes, a year later. Oh, dear Jesus. It came out like 2 weeks ago. Watched it all in one sitting again. And you know what? As soon as it was over, no! They've renewed it for season 3. It'll be out in 2020. What in the world is that? This is how our society has changed. We want it all, and we want it all right now. And we want it now, and it's hard to wait because, well, later's longer. Right? Later's longer. And what we want today often ends up not being what we want tomorrow. This is kind of like high school reunions can teach you this. You know where I'm going with this? Me and Denton we graduated the same year, and they canceled our 10-year reunion. But when you live in this area, you run into people you went to high school with all the time. And just to put it nicely, you run into some girls that you just really wanted a shot with so bad, and you're like, I'm glad I didn't get that. Y'all were like, that's terrible, but every one of you have thought that. Every one of you have run into an ex or somebody that you thought you were interested in, and you're like, thank God. Garth Brooks has a song, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. That's for doggone sure. But that's one of the things that, we kind of realize is that what you want at one point in time isn't what you always want, right? Whenever you buy something on credit today, this is where it got real quiet last service. You buy it on credit today, and a few months from now, you don't even want it no more. I'll give you a perfect example. All right, this right here is the first iPad that ever came out. And it's actually in pretty good shape. I don't remember what year it was. It was probably like 2010 or 11, something like that. And I'm real big into the latest technology and stuff like that. It's one of my things. I like to stay on top of everything. The only reason I don't have an Apple Watch is because I'm about to admit something. I hope my wife doesn't watch this. She's at work. But I'm really rough on my hands, and watches, I lose them. She bought me like a $350 diesel watch a few years ago. I don't know where it's at. If you tell her, I'll kill you. I mean, that thing was nice too, and I'm just going to say that somebody stole it, because I'm pretty sure I went and was playing the drums and I took it off because it's a big one. Joelle, did you take my watch? You stole my watch. That's what I'm going to tell Stephanie whenever she figures it out. But I got this iPad. Now, whenever they were talking about it, and Steve Jobs always had this way of presenting stuff and making you think you've got to have it. He was a great spokesman. He could sell really well. And I remember watching it, and I was like just infatuated with the idea of a tablet. And I had to have it. Just had to have it. I wanted it so bad. I was like, there's never been anything like this out. I've got to get it. So I went online, and I was looking at it. They made it available to purchase. And I look at it, and it was like $600 or $700 at the time. And I was like, ugh. This is before me and Stephanie. Actually, it might have been right about the time me and Stephanie started dating, so I still had some money. But $600-$700 for somebody that's like 20 years old. Still, you're like, I can't just spit out $600-$700. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to get it. And I look over to the side, and it said financing available. Payments as low as like $49.95. I was like, ooh, I can do that. $49.95. It's right up my alley there. I can handle that. So I bought it, financed it, and they sent it to me, and I was super excited about it for about a month. Not that it was bad. Worked, did everything it was supposed to do. But about a month into it, I started making payments and making more payments, and I looked down at it one day, and I was like, this is just like a big iPad or a big iPhone. Like it's just a big version of like an iPod Touch or something. I was like, I can't even make phone calls on it. I was like, this is like for people with bad vision. It's just blown up bigger. Like all I was doing on it was like, I remember I was trying to rationalize in my mind why I needed this. I was like, well, I can read ebooks. Y'all, I don't read. I don't read regular books. Why am I going to read an ebook? People are always trying, how people spam your accounts and send you, read my free ebook. I'm not going to read it. Just stop. I don't read regular books. I'm not going to read your ebook. But I wanted it so bad. And you know what was really frustrating about that? It took me like 3 years to pay this thing off. Because I didn't read the terms and conditions. After 6 months, if it wasn't paid off, all the interest kicked in. So I think this iPad cost me about $1,700. By the time I finished paying for this, there was like 3 or 4 other models out. You know how aggravating that is? Like all of a sudden, like all the things that I wish it could do, the new model does, and I'm still paying for this piece of crap. They don't even cut on anymore. Like, nope. I tried to charge it, but guess what? It's got them really old charging. You remember those? The real big ones? Yeah, junk. But that's kind of the way we are. What we want now may not be what we want just a little bit later. And we have what we call regrets. Regrets begin with I want. You ever thought about it? Your regrets always begin with I want. I wanted something. And regret ends with I want to go back in time and not get what I wanted. You ever thought about it? Pretty much every regret you have is because you got something you wanted. It ends with I wish I had not got what I wanted. Getting what you want all the time can limit your options later on. Greatly limit your options. Every want is tied to an appetite, and appetites are never fully satisfied, right? Getting what you want usually leaves you wanting more, right? If you get what you want, you just want something else. And it's kind of, my thing with this is my downfall is Amazon. Anybody have an Amazon problem? And now, one of the things that I've done recently is justifying buying on Amazon because you can purchase through Amazon Smile and it supports Crosspoint Church. If you're not doing that, you should do it. It doesn't change anything. Just go to Amazon Smile. Same thing. But I was like, there's been several things over the past couple of months, and I'm like, I really don't need this. But the church will get a small percentage of this. So I'm doing the will of the Lord, and I'm getting what I want. You know, I'm just sowing seed into ministry. That's kind of how I kind of view it. But Amazon will get me every single time. It'll make me think I want something even though I don't really want it. You know, they have all these little algorithms that knows your search history and stuff, and you'll bring up something that you want, and right below it, it'll say recommended products, and like, how did it know that I wanted that? And it'll say, buy all three together for this little bit lower price. I think I will. You know? I think I will. I think I'm going to do that. I want that. And I'm sitting there, I went on there just to, to like get something that I actually did need, and I've just spent several $100s on total junk. And I told them in last service, I actually ship a lot of stuff back to Amazon. Like I'll get it, and I'm like, why in the world did I get this? I'm sending this back. And like you have to ship through UPS for Amazon, which is really inconvenient. But the people at the UPS store, they know me by first name. Because I have a lot of purchases that I make that I regret. And unlike my wife, I actually return things. All the time I hear this. Like, my wife has a problem spending money on Linux. Okay, our nephew. Like, a lot of money on Linux. And so she'll come home and she'll bring in all these clothes and shoes for Linux. And I'm like, baby, he only needs 4 pairs of Jordans. He don't need 8. We buy him shoes like every 2 weeks. The good thing about it is Jordans are way cheaper for babies. Once he gets a little older, that's on you, boss. I ain't buying him no more. But she'll say, well, I'm going to take some of it back. I'm not gonna give him all this stuff. Never once has she taken it back. She never takes anything back that she says she's going to. She somehow lost the receipt. I don't know where the receipt's at. Yeah, okay. They'll give you store credit just about anywhere without a receipt. Take it back and get store credit. But what do you really want? What is it that you really want? Here's a little fun fact for you. Wanting is a lot more fulfilling than having. You ever just want something so bad and it just like consumes your mind nonstop? It's nonstop. I gotta have it. I gotta have it. Gotta have it. And as soon as you get it, it just goes away. You're like, what in the world? Like, this is nice, but where'd that feeling go? I wanted it. Now I have it. Now I really don't care. It's tricky, isn't it? Wants are very tricky. Anybody ever heard of C.S. Lewis? I've always enjoyed C.S. Lewis's writings. Most of y'all, if you went to elementary school, which I'm hoping most of you did, you may have read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Anybody read those books? Great books. Movies were really good. I have this thing, like, if it's already in movie form, I'm going to watch it instead of reading the books. I did that with Harry Potter. I didn't read any of them books. I was like, the movies are already started. Ain't no point in reading the books. Just a waste of my time. Plus, I don't read books. But C.S. Lewis, he wrote a book called The Great Divorce. And here's a little background on C.S. Lewis. Everybody knows he was a Christian, but he wasn't always a Christian. He didn't grow up in church like a lot of people did in that time. He wasn't religious. He wasn't indoctrinated. We'll just say that growing up. He didn't have any preconceived ideas of what religion was supposed to be. So a lot of his writings are from an angle that's very interesting. Like somebody like me, like I grew up in church, I'm used to a lot of the things that I've seen, and hearing a different perspective is always awesome. But he wrote a book called The Great Divorce. And if anybody in here has been through divorce, you would probably say that's a terrible title. There's no such thing as a great divorce. But he wrote this book, and it's not about divorce. A lot of people would wish that the title of the book was changed. But this book is about what he thought hell would be like. What he thought hell would be like. And his idea of hell, it takes away all of the, flames and devil with the pointy horns and all this kind of stuff, pitchfork, like, no, all that stuff's gone. His idea of hell is everybody getting everything they wanted. And you're probably sitting there and you're thinking, that sounds like heaven, man. Get everything you want. Everything you want. His whole premise of this was if everybody's always getting everything they want simply by thinking of it, that you slowly start to drift apart from everybody. You get what you want, you don't need nobody. And you have everything you want, you're getting everything you want, and you end up alone. To him, that was his idea of hell. And getting what you want, while we may think that it's something awesome, always getting what you want. I think C.S. Lewis had a point that it would be a living hell to always get everything you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to read a little bit from the book of James. Now, we talk about James a lot here. We use James as kind of a linchpin to talk about the validity of Jesus. Usually, every couple months we'll talk about this. We'll say something to the effect of, James was the brother of Jesus. What would it take if you have a brother to believe your brother was the Son of God? You've heard us say that before. How many of you guys in here have a brother? Raise your hand if you have a brother. What would your brother have to do to make you actually believe he was the Son of God? Imagine how terrible it had to have been to be the brother of Jesus. You know how many times, I'd like to know, I would love to have there's a lot of stuff that gets left out of the Bible, like time periods and conversations I'd have loved to have heard. Like when James and Jesus were younger and Mary and Joseph are like, why can't you be more like Jesus, James? Well, because I'm not the Son of God. How about that? Okay? That had to be super frustrating. You have the golden boy over here. I wonder if James ever beat up Jesus. And did Jesus turn the other cheek? Makes you wonder, right? But James, the brother of Jesus, he believed that Jesus was the Son of God. Not initially, but he saw him raised from the dead. He saw him crucified, saw him alive. He was like, okay, he's the Son of God. Okay, so this is what James said in James chapter 4, starting with verse 1. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? What's the source of your fights and your quarrels? He goes on and says, don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Don't they come from your wants, the things that you want? Don't your conflicts come from the things that you want? The things that you want kind of create like an internal struggle, and when you're not getting what you want, it's like an external thing that just spills out into your relationships, and it causes lots and lots of problems. Verse 2, you desire but do not have, so you kill. Now, obviously, this is hyperbole right here. He's not saying that when you don't get what you want, you kill. Some people have, but that's not a thing. It's a metaphor. And he's talking about, there's different things in your life that you can kill with your wants. Have you ever known somebody that has killed a marriage because of their wants? They wanted a marriage to death. They wanted something so much from a person that they couldn't give them. They wanted that it ruined a relationship. Maybe they wanted a career so bad or wanted more from a career so bad. They wanted a job. They wanted until it ruined the job they had. Or finances. They wanted things. They wanted, and it ruined finances. So, wanting can lead to killing of the things that you really want. Verse 2, you covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. Now, we don't use the word covet very much. Covet basically just means that you are pursuing like hot pursuit. You won't leave it alone, constantly going after it, getting obsessed with it, basically. And so you're constantly going after it, so what you want, so you quarrel, you have fights with somebody because you're not getting what you want. You just can't let your wants go. So here's the progression. You want, but you don't have. You want what you want, but don't have. You do what you need to do to get it, and you find that it's not really what you wanted. The wanting keeps increasing. The appetite keeps increasing. It erupts externally whenever you're not getting what you want on the people around you. You bypass God. You just went your own way to get what you wanted. Now confusion and all kinds of complications arise in your life. So, as you can see, getting what you want can be a problem, right? James says not getting what we want creates conflict. That's why we're not naming the series How to Get What You Want. It's how to get what you really want. Most of us don't know what we really want because we get distracted by our desires and our appetites. We don't know what we really want. We think we know, but we don't. And the things we are told will satisfy those desires and quench those thirsts and appetites, they never do. And the thing is there's so many like self-help things out there to try to help people. Nobody out there is really trying to help you get what you really want. That would totally ruin the sales business. If you got what you really want, people ain't gonna go out buying cars all the time that they can't afford, or iPads that they can't afford, or anything like that. If you were able to get what you really wanted and it satisfied a hunger deep down inside, a lot of people would lose a lot of money from you. A lot of businesses would go out of business because the wants just cease to exist. So, what we really want, it lurks in a realm that we rarely explore. What we really want is in a place that we rarely go. And I know a lot of you are probably sitting here and you're thinking I'm going to do like some kind of Jedi mind trick on you and come around and be like, what you really want is a relationship with God, man. I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm saying. I think that's what you need. It may not be what you want right now. But I can't tell you what it is you really want. That's what you have to figure out. That's what we're going to try to do as we keep moving forward. He goes on in verse 2. James says, you do not have what you want because you do not ask God. You don't ask God. Now, if you're asking God for something that's super selfish, or you're going to, there's really two responses to this. You can either say, well, I'm not going to ask God because I know what he's going to say. I know what the response is going to be. And whenever you have that idea of asking God, you kind of know that what you're wanting is selfish in the first place. Or the next response is I have asked God to help me to figure out what it is that I really want, and I haven't gotten an answer. There's been many times in my life that I've asked God for something or help with something, and I didn't get a response. And that can be difficult. That can be very difficult. When you ask, you do not receive because you ask badly or with wrong motives, okay? Now, the original text translates it as badly, not wrong motives. Wrong motives sounds more grammatically correct. Using the term just, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with bad motives, or ask, badly. It just don't sound good. But you have a problem asking the wrong way. You ask God the wrong way. It's coming out of a selfish mindset. The endless want cycle. It's nonstop. Keeps on going, and it never ends. We consistently let the short-term things that we want, the little things, kind of cloud our view of the things behind it that we really want. Lurking in the shadows of what we want is what we value. If you want to find out what you want, you have to figure out what you value. If you figure out what you value, you'll start to understand a little bit more about what you want and what's important to you. You'll never get what you really want until you discover what you really value. Never get what you really want until you know what you really value. My dad is always, since the time I was a little kid, I've always, growing up in a preacher's house, you hear all these little sayings they have. And one thing that one of the ones that's really stuck with me is, where your treasure is, your heart will follow. If you want to know what you really value, go look at your bank account and see where you spend the most money. That's a really an easy way to figure it out. Mine's food. So there you go. I spend most of my money on food and Linux. Or Stephanie spends most of my money on Linux. But as Jesus followers, God wants more for us. And as, if you're in here today and you're not a Christian, or you're just, you're here because somebody invited you, you don't know if you want to be a Christian, that's fine. God doesn't want something from you. He wants something for you. He wants you to figure out what you really want. Because until you figure out what you really want, life is just going to be an endless, perpetual cycle of emptiness, trying to fulfill something that you just can't ever seem to get hold of. You want, you get it, nothing changes, you get a little bit more in debt or something, and you keep wanting, and it never seems to work out. Jesus wants more for you. And I hope you come back over the next couple of weeks, because we're not going to tell you exactly what it is you really want, but we're going to try to help you figure it out along the way with us. If you would, stand with me. If you would, bow your heads and close your eyes. Lord, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here today. I'm thankful for the ability to be able to stand up here and talk, and hopefully something I say or have said will help somebody out moving forward. A lot of times we don't even realize that we're in a cycle. We're in a cycle of constantly trying to get what we want. We're buying things, we're going after certain things in our life, and all it's doing is keeping us from what we really want. We're constantly limiting our options. All the decisions we're making for the things that we want, we're hindering our growth. We're keeping ourselves from being able to reach milestones in our life that we've always dreamt of getting. God, I pray that you help us to figure it out what it is we really value. Some of us may know what we really value. Some of us may not. Some of us have never really thought about it. Hopefully, that's what the people who have gotten out of this today. They want to understand what they really value. God, I pray that as we move forward throughout this week, that you keep in the back of our mind things that we're wanting right now. Are they necessary? Are they going to keep us from getting something more important down the road? And I pray, Lord, that you just help us all to make better choices. It's all about making better choices and understanding that you have more for us. You want more for us. You don't want anything from us. You want things for us. We thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.